Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good evening. Welcome to the Pivotal Podspective, where we talk to extraordinaires absolutely everywhere about the pivotal ideas that they have, their tips and tricks and ways that can help you guys to level up personally and professionally. And today we have a very interesting extraordinaire, a mindful travel and expat coach extraordinaire, Josee Perron. It's Joe. We'll call you Joe, though, eh?
Yeah. Yes, please call me Joe.
How you doing, Joe?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you both?
Oh, well, I'm very good. But
Great.
I missed saying, because I was used to Adrian standing here with me last week, and anybody that's listened to this as a podcast won't know what I'm doing with my hands. But this is going out live across Facebook and YouTube and a few other profiles as well. So, of course, my co-host
Decided to do a Brexit.
Adrian Dorobantu, who
Yeah.
is en route to Romania, is in Germany this evening, aren't you?
Yes, yeah. I'm Germany. I arrived here Tuesday night, almost Wednesday morning, to be honest, at 1 a.m., something like that. And yeah, I'm here for now. We'll see where the life take us in the next few days.
Who knows? But
Yeah.
more importantly,
Joe.
you're in Madrid, right?
Yeah, in Madrid, in Spain.
So Joe is very multicultural, I would say.
Completely multicultural. I mean, I introduced you as Josee. Is Josee? Is that was it Josee Perron?
Josee, yeah.
Okay, and let's get it right. You're not just French. You're a French Canadian.
Specifically a French Canadian, yes, not French at all. Canadian who speaks French and English, bilingual.
Don't say not French at all. I mean,
Well, they're two very different
I
things.
know.
Okay? French Canadian and French are just very different cultures and languages and worlds. So
absolutely. So, Joe, listen, mindful travel and expat coach. I mean, that's a title. That's a title on its own there. And listen, there's no point me trying to explain that, but tell everybody what a mindful travel and expat coach does.
yeah, so I come in and help travelers or expats. So whether that's people who are before their travels or their relocations abroad, they're already abroad, or they've come back from their trips, I help them use travel to transform themselves, mind, body, soul transformations as you're exploring the world. I think that as we move forward and travel and tourism becomes a bigger and bigger industry, people are looking for more deeper ways to connect with travel and to embark on travel. And more people are looking for these like eat, pray, love type of adventures where, it's not just about visiting sites. It's not just about going abroad and speeding through a billion different to-do lists and sites and activities, but instead really using that time to transform themselves and to expand and level up, and whether that be in work, and whether that be in their inner selves, and whether that be in their social relationships, really just using that travel time to expand and connect and really transform.
Okay. This at the moment though, a bit difficult, that right? Travel is okay, it's easing up a little bit, but that's a challenge in itself right now. Does that then give a challenge to what you do as well professionally?
Well, I almost have the opposite perception of this time period. People are asking me that a lot lately, but I feel like more than ever, this is a time where we're given the opportunity to potentially really transform the travel industry. Right. I think travel is great. If you I've traveled most of my life. Travel has been a very pivotal part of making me who I am and allowing me to end up where I have. But the travel industry does have a lot of negative impacts on the environment, on cultures, on ourselves, even sometimes in the way that we consume travel can be quite compulsive. And so I think that this time where we're forced to just stop is a really beautiful opportunity to really potentially make some pivots in the way that we travel, but in the way that we live, and the way that we interact, and the way that we build our lives really in general. So I'm optimistic and hoping that once the borders really open back up, that we're maybe looking at how we travel in a bit more of a conscious way. I'm hoping.
in a different light. I love the word pivot, by the way. We're going to take a few snippets of that for some marketing purposes, I think. But yeah, pivot, but it is about that. And so. Yeah, I think you're right. I think people are going to be looking at travel in a different way. Definitely on a work level for sure. People are definitely going to be more conscious about the traveling because there's mediums like this that we can use, or Zoom or whatever. And we've spoken about this on many shows now. But I do think that there is going to be a reduction in that sort of business travel. The need to sit in front of somebody isn't as imperative anymore. So do you think that people will be traveling for a different, for a better reason, a more fulfilling reason, rather than just a cold travel to one place, do the meetings, travel somewhere else, but actually use that travel to enrich their lives? Is that the sort of path you're going down with the mindful travel? I mean, explain that to me, because I don't get it at the moment. So
he's not very mindful now. So yeah, explain that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I totally agree. I do think that in the business travel context, I do think that there will inevitably be some shifts, because I think this has given a lot of companies the opportunity to try out tools and meeting ways to connect with people who are around the world in a really practical way. And I think for a lot of people, it's proved successful to be able to connect this way. And so eliminating maybe the need for so much business travel, which I think is a positive thing.
Yeah.
But I think in general, there will always be a bajillion reasons why people travel. I just think that as often as we can, if we can, bring a bit more conscientiousness into the way that we are exploring the world, and treating the way that we explore the world, other countries, other cultures, just as considerately and just as consciously as we would if it was our backyards, I think sometimes we get the travel industry, like a lot of industries, most industries, because of the world we live in, has become one more place where we just end up doing it a bit mindlessly. We have these lists, these bucket lists. We have to do all these. We have to stop at all these places. We jam-pack 2-week holidays with millions of stops. We don't really think about it, and we think that that's how it has to be. But maybe it can be something else. It can be an opportunity where there's a bit more stillness, or a bit more of an opportunity to connect with other people, connect with ourselves in a bit more of an intimate and awakened way. That's what, for me, mindful travel is. It's just being really connected with the experiences that we're having while we're out and about in the world.
So, for example, give us an example then. So, for example, I mean, we know somebody that does experience travel, so they're experiential, I believe, is the terminology. So if you were to go to Italy, for example, rather than just doing a load of sightseeing, what would be the better way to utilize that time if you were going to spend 10 days in and around Milan, for example? I mean, you choose anywhere you like, but I'm just as an example, what would be the better way to do things, the more mindful way to experience when you're going away?
So for me, mindful travel has a few different elements. So it's not about not going to visit sites. Okay. It's about choosing the sites that you visit with more consciousness. Right. So oftentimes I think we go to places, you go to Paris and oh, well, I'm going to have to go to the Eiffel Tower, because how am I going to go to Paris without going there? Sure. But oftentimes these things that we're supposed to visit aren't even things that truly bring us joy. We're doing them because we think we have to do them. Oh, I get you. And so mindful travel is about really stopping to consider the things that you want to fill your day with, and making those decisions a bit more consciously, and really asking yourself, which stops are really going to be things that are going to bring me joy, and trying to consume all of those activities, all those experiences, all those connections in a more awakened and present way, so that you're not needing to just do it one thing after another and have itineraries that are huge and have a million stops and a million connections, where there's not even an opportunity to just really truly be with what it is that you're experiencing. So it's not about not seeing sights, but doing it consciously, and also creating time in your days to just be with the experiences that you're having, disconnecting from the cameras and the phones and the social media, and just being with the food that you're eating in Milan, and really just taking in the sights that you're seeing, and really giving yourself time to take in that experience more.
Yeah, it sounds really good, but to who this applies to?
Yeah.
Well, little by little,
me and my fiance Elliot, we have about 6 kids, and we plan to go on a holiday. Do you think we can have a mindful holiday?
Mindful holiday. I think there's a lot of flexibility.
All kids, they are boys, girls. They are aged between 3 and 21. So, what do you reckon?
I think mindful holiday can look like a lot of different things, and I think and so does mindfulness. In fact, at the base of what I do is teach people about mindfulness. And mindfulness, includes meditation and also includes just, I can practice mindfulness as I'm having this conversation with you right now. It's not about necessarily revolutionizing our lives exteriorly and how we're what we're doing in our day, but really changing the way that we experience each moment. So really just being present. If you have kids and you're going on a trip, it's not necessarily saying, okay, we're not going to visit any sites, but instead just changing the way that you show up while you're having those experiences. And that, to be able to really maybe understand what that experience is, you start practicing mindfulness as a regular part of your, of your life. And I just think that travel is a really good opportunity to start implementing those types of practices. Because sometimes in our day-to-day lives, we're too busy, we have too many things going on, we have all these demands, and then during travel, there's oftentimes more space. So there's more of an opportunity to create new habits, create new practices, and really, as you're already sitting at a new perspective in life, it sometimes feels almost a bit easier to just take on these new ideas or these new practices.
Okay, so how do you? I mean, in the mindfulness, we were talking probably before we started recording, I think, about sort of meditation and that mindfulness is emotional intelligence as well, and this is a word that or a phrase that we've definitely covered a couple of times through some of the podcasts we've done. But also last year, I was talking to Adrian about this. Is that actually was brought to my attention in the last couple of years about emotional intelligence. What do you do then to get yourself into the right mindful state? That you said you could do this while you're sat there, and what is it that you do? Come on, can talk us through that. That's going to help me and anybody else, and particularly Adrian who sat there,
and me as well. Just because I think the number of people that would be willing to accept this or to it's very limited at the moment. I don't think anyone that goes into Spain every year in I don't know what's the name of that place where everyone goes and gets really, really drunk, that has a TV, and Benidorm, or other places in other countries. They just
they're not very mindful, are they?
Yeah, but they go to the same hotel for years, and they're just interested in going there, drinking and staying at the hotel all day. They will never be in this state of mind. So I think there needs to be a specific type of category of people.
Oh yeah, of course. And just like anything, for me, this is the equivalent to conscious consumerism, but in the travel industry. Not everyone is ready or at the place in their life where they're ready to make changes in how they consume at the grocery store or clothes or whatever it is they're consuming. But a lot of people are, because a lot of people are recognizing the impact that mindless consumerism has on the planet, has on people that are producing these goods, and on a lot of people. And I think just as many people are willing to make these types of shifts in how they travel as well. And
But do you see these type of people more as in families, couples, single people, or what do you see from what industry as well? My opinion, I see lots of people coming from corporation where they get really bored or burned out.
I see just a lot of these very progressive conscious movements that are happening. Women in their 30s and 40s, I think, are very present in the idea of wanting to transform the way they live. And these are the people that I'm coming most into contact with that are interested in having these types of experiences.
Usually after a divorce or before?
Maybe not even. Maybe, life is changing in terms of how.
I know. I'm asking honestly because
I'm interested.
Okay. Yeah,
never had kids, never got married, or like I said earlier, there's this whole tendency of these eat, pray, love type of adventures. Whether it's a woman or a man, people get to a certain point of their life, and you need to shake things up, and you need to create changes, figure out a path that feels more right for you, and a trip can often be what people take to create those shifts, you know?
And that's the reason why I didn't ask to make fun or anything, but I know people that actually they had a really bad breakup or something like that, or they had a really bad divorce, and then they just decided to do a massive change or a complete shift, you know, and that's why they decided to leave the country and friends and everything else, family, and just go in a completely new place somewhere else and live there for a while or something like that. And that's what I was asking.
Yeah, and I find not only is it common after big breakups, but even maybe after you've left a job, maybe you're like transitioning towards a new career or going through these very pivotal moments in life, more and more it seems like people are throwing themselves into travel to help try and find what the new path will be, you know, as a place of self-discovery and as a place of rediscovering the next type of phase for themselves.
Yeah, I can see the benefits of maybe doing when you do go away and looking at it from a different point of view, not trying to fill it up with. I mean, listen, I want to be funny. We've probably all done it. I'm not speaking for you, Joe, of course, or Adrian, in fact, but I've definitely done it. So I'm speaking for me. But I've gone off and go to Ibiza, and I'm not being funny. All I'm going to go over there for is to go clubbing and not sleep for 5 days, basically. So that's not going to apply to people that are going to places like Ibiza. However, there are some beautiful parts of the island that you can go and explore and soak in a very, very different type of lifestyle. So even going to a place like that, I suppose, in the right mindset, and actually thinking about it, I do know people that do that. They stay in a different part of the island, they go down and do the partying, and then go back and experience quite a nice leisurely lifestyle for the other days that they're away. So is that maybe, you know, putting a bit of mindfulness into you know, travel and going to somewhere like that? So you're going to party, but at the same time take stock of where you are and sort of soak it in and sort of recharge a little bit as well, maybe.
Yeah, I find more than talking to people that have experiences where they're kind of at those both extremes, going to Ibiza and partying one day and having the Zen experience the next day, I find what I've come across more are, you know, people who within their own lives will fall on different extremes at different moments in their life. Like, I've done the Ibiza, I haven't gone to Ibiza per se, but I've done these types of holidays as well.
Yeah.
And maybe just at a different point in my life, I want a different type of experience while I'm abroad, you know, and then maybe 5 years after that or 2 months after that, it's again a different type of experience of what it is I'm looking for. And I think within all of these experiences, just because you're going to Ibiza to party, it doesn't mean it doesn't have, it can't be a mindful decision, you know? Mindful decision is, even if you decide that that's what you're going to do, that it be a decision that you've stopped and consciously considered and made sure that it's in line with what it is you're looking for in that moment, you know? Mindfulness isn't about becoming a saint and not doing party holidays in Ibiza, but about always making sure that when you do that, it's something that you're really conscious of how that makes you feel, what your thoughts are on the subject, like just something that you've stopped and considered.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of people that have come on just before the show. Hernan Cias from the Business Bros.
Hello, Hernan.
Another great show coming up. My mother, of course, always there. Our one of our biggest fans, Joe.
Hello, Elias, ma'am, and she's in Spain as well. I'm
up in Torrevieja, so not a million miles away from you, but she's still a fair distance from you, to be fair. And Alka Chopra says, hi, Elliot and Adrian. Missed out you, Joe.
Hello, Alka.
Alka, what are you doing? However, I think you made a great point. I don't know which one it was, but you made a great point anyway, Joe. So that's that. So hi, everybody that's watching, and watching the show. Okay, so I get this. I'm starting to get this now. The mindful travel. Going back to what we were talking about the experiential sort of travel and the client that we know that has a business that does that. That is quite mindful travel when you're actually booking to go on an experience rather than go on the holiday. So the holiday or the place you're staying is the place to stay, but you're actually going for an experience. Is that more a sort of a holiday booking technique that is more mindful booking, do you think? Because I do know a couple of people that have they do particular holidays where it isn't just about it's going to a particular place, maybe it's the Maldives, but there's lots of things that you do when you go there, not just a helicopter trip, but other experiences that you're not going to necessarily do every day. That's a far more thought-driven booking process, isn't it, when you're thinking about going away?
Yeah, I think, like I said before, I think the same idea comes in here, that I think a big range of different types of holidays can be mindful depending on how you're taking in that experience and how you're considering while you're making the bookings, while you're deciding what type of trip you're taking. You know, I think mindfulness can appear, someone can go on the most, like on a pilgrimage, and spend none of it consciously and really taking in that experience really intimately, whereas somebody else could go to Ibiza and have a party weekend and be totally mindful and very present throughout that whole experience. So I think it does have to do with the types of trips you take, because I think the more that you practice mindfulness, the more that not only do you become aware of the experiences that you're having within yourself, so your thoughts, your feelings, your perceptions, your beliefs, and all of those inner things, but also how everything that you're doing is impacting everyone around you as well. The communities that you travel through, the world, the environment, all these different elements. And I do think that there are some types of holidays or some services or some elements of tourism that are more harmful than other elements. And I think the more that you practice mindfulness, the more you start considering these types of things and reflecting on how, reflecting on flights and the impact that a flight has on the environment and whether that's always worth it. Like, I think when I was younger, I used to, if I would have lived in Europe when I was in my 20s, I would have flown by plane all over the place just for weekend trips. And now I wouldn't do that, just because I know how impactful that is. And I might be willing to do a road trip, but not necessarily take a plane just for a weekend trip. So I think it's all relative, I think.
What about if that, the end feeling makes you very accomplished, fulfilled, and happy, even though you travel? Because I don't think you take your private jet to travel. You travel with about a few other hundreds people. So yeah, does it matter that much if you're happy at the end, then you just feel accomplished?
Yeah, I think, well, two thoughts on that. I think, it's never a problem unless it's a problem, right? So if you're traveling a certain way and it is bringing you joy, then that's great.
Okay.
That's one element. But on another side of the spectrum, realistically, the travel and tourism industry has a lot of negative impacts on a lot of areas in life. Like I mentioned a few times now, on the environment, on countries and cultures across the world. Tourism and travel promote a lot of economic disequality and inequality. It promotes a lot of different ideas that aren't necessarily beneficial to everybody. And I'm not saying let's stop traveling, but let's consider that in when we think about travel, when we think about experiencing cultural exchanges in different countries across the world. I think those elements should be things that we think about. And it's not just about being very selfish and how much joy we're finding from the experiences that we're having, but really seeking joy in a more holistic and community way that says, not only I want this experience to benefit me, but really I want this to be a positive experience for everybody. I want it to be a positive experience for the lady from the guest house where I'm staying, and the host of the person that's cooking my meal, and really to have this be a context that's really beneficial and empowering for everybody.
Are there, I mean, we can't sink, no, do you know, I won't go down that path. I was going to say there are certain people that do go abroad, but Adrian picked up on this, whether you think about the people that maybe go to Benidorm, the people that just get pissed, they've got no respect for the people that are serving their food and things like that. They're the typical...
Yeah, but they do the same back home, so I don't think it's really...
It's the same everywhere, I suppose. But I mean, so I'm going to get off that subject. I'm going to cut that bit out, actually. So edit. but Spain's, I mean, if it wasn't for tourism, Spain's economy would suffer greatly, wouldn't it? And in fact, there's a lot of countries that
Spain, Greece, like we said, for example, just look at Bali. I have friends in Bali, and they said, the whole island just relies on tourists. Without tourists, they're just dead over there, and loads of crimes start to happen and stuff like that.
Yeah, what I think about that idea, though? I do think, I agree, there's a lot of places that depend very heavily on tourism, but I think it's time we start taking a more holistic approach on how we really investigate how much places depend on tourism, because sometimes we don't consider the cost of how much tourism impacts negatively a certain place. There were studies that were done about the negative impact of tourism on certain places. And if we're only considering the economic gain that a place obtains from tourism, then we're not considering all the elements. So you consider a place like Barcelona, which has such an issue with tourism because there's just an excess of tourism coming in, that a lot of elements of the culture are being lost. People have to move away from the center because all the tourists are taking the accommodations.
Sure.
And when we're talking about the impact of tourism, we need to be talking about these things as well. We can't just be talking about how tourism helps sustain the economy. The economy is one element of life, but there are a lot of other elements that we should be talking about, I think.
And of course, but talk about Barcelona and even Madrid as well. I mean, there's a lot of street crime, isn't there, now, because of the tourism? There's a lot of pickpockets, things like that. Now, that's been in the press a huge amount in the last couple of years, and I think we probably all know somebody that has been there and actually had that happen to them, because it's that rife with regards to that as well. So I suppose there's the negative impact. You increase the tourism, you increase that amount of people, and I mean, you were saying this, Adrian, Bali, the increase in crime as well. So I suppose but that's the increase in crime just because the tourist is in lockdown now, so that's why it's the increase in crimes. That's what I meant. So before it wasn't like that, but since C19, that's when it actually started rising a lot, just because the whole island is shut down. There's no other way of income, and then at the moment that the locals see you as a tourist, they know you have money. That's the reason why if you stay there on the island, you definitely have more money than them. Not necessarily that you're rich, but you have way more money than them, and then you become a target. Okay, listen, I mean, let's get off that subject for a second, because I don't want to get into crime and sort of bring the feel of the show down. What's an expat coach as well? What is that? Because that's part of your title as well, isn't it? What's an expat coach do?
So you've heard about a life coach. An expat coach, similarly to a travel coach, these are similar areas that I work in that does similar things that a life coach does, but for people who are traveling or relocating abroad. Like I've already said, so I've been living now in Spain for 6 years, but I've lived in places around the world. And through these experiences and through having a big network of people that live in this similar way, I've seen that oftentimes people relocate abroad when they're looking for transformation. They're looking to transform. They've left their job, or they've left their partner, or they're not feeling right in the life that they have at home or wherever they're living, and they're looking for something new. They're looking to redesign their lives, and oftentimes they're not even really sure how to do that, how to figure out what the next step for them is, how to figure out what to do with their work life, or what they even want. And a life coach or an expat coach comes in and just really helps people figure out what the next right moves for them is. So it's not about telling someone where they should travel or what they should do or how they need to move. It's not about the coach telling anyone how to create their own lives, but really helping the expat while they're living abroad to create a life that is really in line with the life that they want to lead.
Okay, so you could incorporate, and do you incorporate the two? So you've got the mindful travel about somebody that may want to move abroad, and making sure that they're in the right mindset to do that. Is that something that you do?
Yeah, exactly. So I really like to bring together the worlds of coaching and mindfulness. So in my sessions, so I do private sessions, and then I also do group programs. Okay. And in both of those, I'm usually bringing in both of those elements, teaching people about mindfulness, practicing meditation, but then also teaching ideologies about mindfulness and how to bring mindfulness into every moment of your life. But then also bringing coaching elements, which comes with questioning and really reflecting and sitting down and making investigations about what it is you want to build of a life, and the ideas that you have about those things, the beliefs that you hold about what a life is supposed to look like, and really creating spaces to reflect on those things. Because oftentimes we're not really living the life that we want, we're living the life that we think that we're supposed to. Yeah. And so an expat coach or a travel coach comes in and helps somebody reflect on those beliefs to make sure that they're all really valid for the person as they relocate abroad or as they travel the world.
So do you have clients that move abroad, And then it just is not what they expected. Doesn't matter how much they prepared themselves to work and to live abroad, set up a business. I mean, a lot of people do this, particularly going to Spain. I mean, I know it's not so much more recently, but definitely a lot of people from the UK have, over the years, they've moved over there and set a bar up or tried to set a business up. And you listen, a lot of people fail in the first year or 2 years because it's just not how they expect it. Your seasons are very different from the country they've come from, and so your period of time in the year that you can earn the money also is way shorter than it would be if you're going to a normal job. So all of that is going to be taken into account, and it doesn't matter how prepared you are. Listen, I'm speaking from experience, but no matter how prepared you are, you aren't necessarily prepared for that culture change. And I'm a pretty worldly wise guy, but and a lot of people think they are. That must be something that you have to overcome, some of the challenges and mindfulness and mindset issues when people do that, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I end up talking about cultural integration and all of those elements quite a bit with people. But I do think that, yes, that does happen, that people relocate and then decide that that's not the right step for them, or even while they're even just reflecting on if that's what they want to do, decide that that's not what they want to do. But then also when I'm working with clients through coaching, through mindfulness as well, we're taking space to really reflect on inner conditions so that the factors that make somebody happy in life, yes, they'll be based on where we're living, the job we have, the partner we choose, but it also is dependent on the way that we're looking at a lot of these things, the perception that we hold.
Yeah.
So through sessions, and then mainly through practicing mindfulness, you really learn to connect in with experiences that you're having in a different way, so that experiences don't have to be amazing. Moving to Spain or moving wherever is never going to be perfect. And it's talking about that, and it's reflecting about that, and accepting imperfections, and accepting that sometimes things will be hard, and that's okay, and that's part of the path, and really just trying to normalize that so that more joy can be found just in everyday experiences. And that, again, is about relocating abroad, and that's what mindful travel is about as well, is really just finding the beauty in every experience and really creating the mental habit that be where your mind reaches out to. So that, yeah, bad things will happen. Of course they'll happen. They will always happen. But not getting stuck on those. Not letting your mind obsess on always clinging to those negative situations.
Yeah, of course. Well, we started off talking about Adrian's on his way back to Romania after many years about being abroad. I mean, for you, Adrian, I mean, this must resonate with you a little bit, to be fair, because you're the mindfulness of why you're doing what you're doing in moving, back to Romania and changing, the lifestyle that you've had here in the UK, which, it's the UK and the weather's shit, but that must be a mindfulness thing from your point of view, right?
Yeah, well, like I said, obviously I'm moving to Romania because that's my home. That's where I was born, even though I don't have that many friends left over there now, just because I left Romania 10 years ago, and any of my values have changed. Me as a person have changed, and I'm not really am who I was before, but I'm missing some of the things, right? Even sometimes these days, I call for someone to get a place back home, and I talk with someone, and it just reminded me of something, even though it's funny and most people out there, they're annoyed by that. But I talked with an old man trying to rent an apartment, or he has an apartment that he's trying to rent it, and he talked in such a funny way. He nothing like in UK, not very diplomatic and stuff like that, and that's something that I was missing, But in the same time, my plan initially, as you know, it was to go to Bali, not necessarily to go to Romania. So even if I go to Romania, again, like you said, maybe put Madrid as your base, Romania as my base, just because that's home. And then I plan to travel quite a lot, Yeah, exactly. But I plan to travel just because because I think for me traveling, and that's why I'll be honest, the way how I am, I'm not that bothered about the impact on the environment and stuff like that. I'm more, I am bothered in actually driving cars, which are not really, are more eco-friendly, and obviously recycling and stuff like that, but not necessarily in flying, just because I think I get way more out of traveling to new places and meeting new people and find new cultures, and explore them, rather than staying somewhere at home and just reading and stuff like this. And I try to do good anytime it's possible, and try to respect always the culture and the people over there. But yeah, that was my plan, and that's how I am right now. That's the journey in my life, or the stage in my life where I am right now.
But it is a thing
It is.
you want to do for
Exactly. Yeah.
your mental state, for the way you work, for everything. So, quite a, an apt subject. I mean, you're moving back, but of course there'll be lots of people, I'm sure, that you've worked with, Joe, that do that. They move somewhere and realize that, maybe that isn't, or they miss certain things, or they want to go to a country that is maybe similar to some of their cultures or the way they work. It's not even a language thing these days, is it, to be fair? But
yeah, definitely. But I think that it comes back to what I was saying earlier. I think sometimes, and I've done this myself a lot with going back home to Ottawa, where I'm from. I think sometimes it's hard to really experience an experience without letting our perceptions of what that experience is going to be take over that situation. So, like, for example, sometimes I idealize what life might be like if I go back to Ottawa, and it's going to be so great. People always tell me, oh, it'd be so great to live in Canada. Why don't you live in Canada? And then I create this idea, oh, I'm going to go to Canada. It's going to be so great. Why don't I live there? And then sometimes I've gone there thinking, okay, yeah, I'm going to move back to Canada. It's going to be so great. And then after a few months, it's not really what I'm looking for, but the idea that I had created in my head had made it that I thought that was going to be the dream, So I think sometimes it's really interesting to have an opportunity. And I think mindfulness really gives us an opportunity to be more present with our thoughts, be more present with our reflections, our beliefs, and what the perception that we're looking at things from, so that we can really start to take away those layers and really experience those things more truly. So now I can go back to Ottawa and say, okay, this is a nice experience. It's not maybe what I want full time, but it has its good things and it has its bad things, and all of that's okay. And really making these decisions a bit more with eyes very wide open and being very conscious of how you're taking those decisions and how you design your life. I'm
curious, when did you stop listening to others and why?
When I stopped listening to what?
To others and why?
Well, it's not that, I think I'm still on the journey of learning to stop to listen to other people. In fact, I was just talking about this yesterday. I think so my business is called You Choose the Way. And I'm very drawn to this idea, not because this comes supernaturally to me, but almost on the complete opposite. I think I lived almost 25, 30 years of my life living the way that I thought that I was supposed to. And when I realized that it didn't have to be like that, which was probably when I lived in Peru. Before living in Madrid, I lived in Peru for a few years. And in my time there, due to a few different circumstances, my professional context, a romantic context I was in, and a few different elements, I realized that I wanted to take more conscious control of my emotions and my thought. I was like, there was just a few different experiences that kind of brought me onto this type of inner adventure.
Right.
And it was these practices that made me realize that I could design my own life, and all the ideas of what I thought that life had to be were just stories. They were just mental stories that I had been told about what life was supposed to look like, and they didn't have to be true.
Who you've been told those stories to? Friends, family?
Yeah, I think so. These are often referred to as, well, they're like beliefs, but oftentimes end up being limiting beliefs that we get when we're kids usually, and we get them from everybody. We get them from mainly our family and the people who are around us, our teachers, but we also get them from media, from television, from video games. And these experiences that we have when we're kids create norms of what we think life is supposed to be. They create the rules of life. And there's nothing wrong with creating these rules as kids. This is how it works. This is the way that our minds are built up, and how we develop thought, and how we develop critical thinking and different things like this. But I think what's important is really to, once we grow up, to take these rule books that we've created back out so that we can re-edit so that they're more in line with the types of lives that we want to lead. Because oftentimes, instead, we just have these rule books that we created as kids, and we just live life based on those rules. And really, most of those rules oftentimes are just stupid, because they were created by a very limited perception of a very young us.
So how do you get to do that? How do you get to actually go and change this? How do you do that if you're still living with your parents, right? And all the people that are still putting those limiting beliefs in you?
Well, you hire a coach. You hire a coach, or you learn about, like for me,
or you move out.
I think it's great, but for me, like the main tool, I've worked with a lot of coaches. I've been coached. I've worked with psychologists. I'm a yoga teacher as well. I meditate, but for me, mindfulness has been probably one of the biggest tools to help me realize these beliefs. And I would make these realizations when I would confront conflictive situations in life. So I come into a conflict in life. So, okay, I'm hating my job and I feel unfulfilled by this. And I would use this opportunity to question within myself, what are the beliefs that I have about work? Are these beliefs true? Are these beliefs serving me? Do I really need to work for the man? Do I really need to work 8 hours a day? Do I really need to work in an office? Are all these things really true? Or are these things that I'm just assuming as truths because I've never questioned them? So anytime there would be an area in my life that I was like, ooh, that feels a bit funny, then I could like take this up and just question what arises. Why do I feel that way? Does it have to be this way? And what if it was this way? And really just reflect and explore those types of ideas.
Just evaluating the thought processes and the whys and the whats and the wherefores, etc. Very, very quickly, Vlad G, who I believe is a friend or colleague of Adrian's, says, "Hi guys, hey Joe, what the product looks like." I'm not quite sure. That says it was actually.
I think he actually probably meant about Joe's product and what she does. Yeah, and all this.
Okay.
But Vlad, Vlad, we're gonna leave you a link, and Joe is gonna say about that just at the end. We're gonna leave you a link to her website and what she does as well. But yeah.
And my mum's still there. She's staying for this conversation, and she's put, "This is my type of convey," and then puts conversation because she had a bit of a typo. I'm good, Mum. I'm pleased we're entertaining you, and we've entertained quite a few people this evening with this chat. And
we're going deep into the conversations here, Elliot. Mum. So yeah.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, I do. Listen, I think where I didn't understand what mindful travel would be, and I think, I think it's not just travel. I think you can apportion this to anything you do in life. The fact that this is your niche, I suppose, in a business which you have to do these days, you've got a niche, is important that you've done that because you're passionate about travel. You've moved from country to country, and you've lived where you've lived for 6 years. I've lived abroad, so has Adrian. So this touches all of us, all three of us here, and probably many people that are here because we have a lot of quite an international audience now. And I do think you're right. I think we have got to think about when we go away. I do think that when we do go to places that you sort of think twice about doing certain things and spending certain amount of time. And I do think, and this is maybe an age thing on my part, but because of the hours that I work, and I know that Adrian works, things like that, we don't take those holidays. We don't take that time. And I do think that when I do go away and do get the chance to do that, which is going to be next year now, I assume, well, actually, potentially the next couple of months, I'm actually going to take the time to go for some walks and soak in that environment, because that isn't what I do. Generally, when I go away, I want some sunshine. I want to get as much sunshine as I can. And I don't do the things that fulfill me as I want. I've been to Egypt a number of times and stayed in the Red Sea, in Sharm el Sheikh, for example. Some of the best and easiest diving you can do on the planet is there. And I still haven't done any, So I've gone away and I've thought, because I didn't want to spend 3 days out of the sun underwater, that's why I didn't do it. But actually now I sort of think back, and I don't regret anything in life, but I think I should have taken that time, because now I would have a certificate and I could do better diving the next time I go away. That to me is a very basic level of mindfulness when you're thinking about going away. And I think that's possibly, where I need to maybe think about things a little more when I do go abroad in the future, for sure.
Yeah. And I guess it's hard to bring in elements of for me, mindfulness is a muscle. And, it can't be something that you just you're in Egypt and all of a sudden you're going to be this super mindful, connected to what you really want and what's really going to truly bring you joy. For me, it's a practice. It's a practice that you have to bring out every day. You have to build that muscle, and you have to get yourself used to being very present with the experience that you're having within yourself based on what you're experiencing outside of what's outside of you, Definitely. And I mean, you have to practice that, and you have to practice that in regular life. You have to practice that in travel. You have to practice that in all areas of life. I don't think, my idea is not that like, okay, let's bring mindfulness just exclusively into travel, but more travel can be a really cool place to start exploring these elements, to bring them back into your regular life and really create a life that feels fulfilling and that you feel really connected to and present for.
Yeah, enriching yourself at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. I love that. Well, listen, as Adrian said a second ago, we'll make sure we put a link in. But where can people find you, Joe? Because I mean, I think we could sort of talk about all sorts of different elements of this. But yeah, where can people find you so that you can help them with their mindfulness, not just in travel, but if they are moving abroad, have moved abroad, there could be all sorts of different people I think that could work with you in that area. But where can they find you?
Yeah, yes, and that's totally right. I work with travelers and expats, but really I work with anyone who feels excited to work in a community of people that are from all over the world and to connect with people who love to explore the world in general. Definitely. And so my website is youchoosetheWay.com. I have a Facebook page with the same name, and I also have a Facebook group called Travel to Transform. That's for anyone who likes this crossroad between travel and personal growth or mindfulness or really inner transformation. And I'm on Instagram. I'm just all over the place. You Choose the Way is the name of my business. So you can find me in all of those places and my services and everything that I do.
Excellent, excellent. Well, listen, I know many people like to travel. We obviously all like to travel. All of us here in our sort of virtual studio, and so I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be interested in what you do and link the two together. Lots of people. In fact, there's a generation that like to go traveling because they want to do that. For example, they want to change their mindset and soak up experiences. A lot of people go to Australia to do it, from the UK and things like that. So, listen, I absolutely get it now. I didn't 45 minutes ago, but I definitely do now, Joe. Thank you for that.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I'm glad that we got to progress in the conversation enough that you were able to understand that idea.
Thank God for that, hey?
Joe, just before you go, quick question. So all the countries that you've traveled in, visited, which one do you like the most and why?
Forever I didn't like that question, but last year me and my partner went on a 5-month motorcycle trip from here in Madrid to Kyrgyzstan, and we traveled through Eastern Europe and Central Asia. And I would have never thought of traveling through Central Asia, but I loved it. I loved Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, and all those Stan countries were just really, really beautiful, and I really loved that whole area. It's really cool.
Okay. Did you wrote about that experience anywhere? Can we find them?
Actually, I have that. During that experience, I wrote 2 books. One about the trip, and I hope that I'm working on the other book right now, and actually hoping to publish that in the next 2 months. And then once that first book's done, I'll come on to the second book, which is more about the motorcycle trip and the kind of inner experience of a global adventure like that. And so again, bringing together the inner transformation that can happen during a global expedition.
Love that.
Cool. Yeah.
Well, let us know when you're releasing the book, and we'll make sure that people look out for that as well. But thanks very much for your time. It's been inspiring. I'm definitely going to look at things slightly differently after this show for sure, and think about things in a different way when I'm going to be booking something to go away, which I cannot wait to do. Let's face it. Oh my God.
Thank you for having me. It was really nice chatting.
No, it's been great. Thanks,
Joe.
Very much. Listen, if we'll make sure there's a link around this. If you are only listening to this, then you've been waiting a little while for this podcast to go up. But if you've been watching this on YouTube or Facebook, then this will be available in audio format as well as a podcast. And you can find out pretty well everything on all of our social media channels, which is Essex Business Radio, apart from Twitter, which is Essex Biz, BIZZ Radio. But go over and subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, of course, and Instagram, and all those things, so we can inform you and let you know when these shows are going live. We are going to be changing the format in the next month or so we'll let you know all about that. And of course, if you do want to listen to the podcast when you go jogging or you're out and about, you're driving now and you're commuting again to work, then you can download the free Essex Business Radio app available at all good app stores. Thanks again, Joe, and thank you, Adrian Dorobantu.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Mr. Elliot.
It's been my pleasure. You've been here for the Pivotal Podspective, but we're going to sign off for now, and I'm going to say ciao for now.
Brown cow. Wow.